Hi guys, James at RampantLionReviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one we are going to stick to Sweden, and we're also going to stick to my home county of Skåne here in the very south of the country. So for this review we're going to have a look at a beer from another brewery that I've never tried anything from before. These guys seem to be a very new addition to the Skånsk beer scene, and I'm hoping that they've got some interesting beers for us over the next little while. So as I've told you in previous Swedish reviews, there's somewhere in the region of 750 little Swedish craft breweries now. There's a very strong culture of home brewing in Sweden and Scandinavia because of how strict the alcohol laws have been over the last years, and they still are pretty strict, to be honest with you. But this culture of home brewing has led to many people starting up their own little brewery businesses, and as a result there's a very high quality of craft beer here in Sweden, which is great actually. You can find some real gems amongst these very small and relatively unknown breweries, and for that reason I always make sure that I introduce 3 or 4 new Swedish breweries on the channel every month, and I'm curious to see what these guys have in store for us. So like I said earlier, we are going to stick to Skåne. These guys are a gypsy brewery, but they're brewing most of their beer in Eslöv, which is a little bit to the northeast of me here in Lund. And we're going to have a look then at my first beer from Ofrälse Brygghus. So this particular beer is called the Mangoes Deluxe. It comes in at 5.6% ABV, and this one is a sour mango Gose. But this beer was released as part of the Lokal Osmoskalegd assortment through Systembolaget here in Sweden for March of 2021. And yeah, I think this is the second beer that they've released through Systembolaget actually, but this was the first one that I saw. I just thought a mango Gose sounded quite interesting, and I always try to get a couple of sour beers every month as well. But yeah, looking forward to trying this one. Nice to introduce these guys here on the channel for you, and I hope that you guys enjoy my take on this one. So let's go for it then. So as always with my reviews, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. All the usual links are in the video description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that hopefully I can do in the future from these guys. Very first time I'm trying one of their beers, as I said, but there's all the usual social media down there. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The whole channel of course has a geography based tagging system, so you can go into the home page and search for beer based on country, city, state, county, province, prefecture, whatever it is you happen to be interested in. Do check out the playlist of beers from different countries. There is one there for all the Swedish beers that I've reviewed for you. That's constantly being added to, and as always, please do get in touch and let me know some of the other beers and breweries that you guys would like to see me review. It's always great to hear from you guys that are watching the videos, and the support that you show the channel is hugely appreciated. So anyway, to tell you a little bit about Ofrälse Brygghus then, on to my brewery notes. So as I've mentioned to you, these guys are currently a gypsy brewery, and they're based in Skåne here in the south of Sweden. But the 3 men behind this company are Simon Leppinen, Adam Öspring, and Hampus Taras Valberg. So Hampus and Simon studied together at Lund, and they brewed beer together. Adam studied at Malmö but spent a lot of time with them in Lund, and Simon is actually a Swedish Finn and studied engineering and now works in UX design. Hampus studied political science and entrepreneurship, and he's also been a soldier and an entrepreneur, while Adam studied and now works with user interfaces. So yeah, he's kind of in I guess UX, UI sort of design, I guess you could say. But this company is basically their part-time venture, but they're hoping that eventually it could be a full-time venture for them. But they spent a number of years building up the company. I actually couldn't find an exact start date for this brewery when I was researching them, but they say that most things started to come together for them across 2020, and so they released their first beer through Systembolaget in January 2021. But the name that they chose for the brewery, Ofrälse, as far as I could figure, and of course I'm not a native speaker so I might be a little bit wrong on this, but Ofrälse is basically an old term that means literally unsaved in the context of religion, and it was used to refer to peasants and things like that, and there's also a few things associated with land ownership as well. So yeah, it's an interesting term actually. I maybe need to talk to the guys and just get exact clarity on what it means. But yeah, Ofrälse, from what I understand, it means that it kind of means that you have not been saved. You've not kind of been saved by God, if you like. So yeah, it was interesting to read about that. You can Google and have a little read about it yourself. But as of March 2021, when I'm reviewing this beer for you, these guys have released 2 beers, and this is the second one that was released in March of 2021. Yeah, let's see how we get on with the tasting. That's all I can really tell you about the brewery. They're very new to the scene, so I'm sure we will have more to add to the brewery notes at some point in the near future. But for now, that's it. So yeah, let's crack on and have a taste of this beer then. So just let you have a little look at the artwork. I have to say, I do like the artwork. It's very modern, very kind of tasteful actually, which I really do like. There you can see a little thing for the Ofrälse Brygghus, which I do think is pretty cool actually. I like that with the trees on the hill and things. But yeah, there's a little berättelse and a little story on the side, so we'll read that to you just in a little second. So Mango's Deluxe, really nicely presented, and there you can see Ofrälse just at the top. But yeah, this can I think cost me somewhere in the region of like 35 Swedish kroner, something like that. So that's roughly about £3 sterling, €3.50, maybe about $4.25 American for those of you watching in different places. But yeah, it says on the side here, det var en mango farm. Det var på en mangofarm I den lilla byn Malibu in Australia. Vi träffade vår belgiske vän Marcelo. So it was on a mango farm in the little village of Malibu in Australia that we met our Belgian friend Marcelo. Om du aldrig plockat mango rekommenderar vi att du inte heller testar. Det är extremt svettig och träden är fulla av ormar. So yeah, if you have never picked mangoes, we'd recommend that you don't do it either, or you don't try it. It's extremely sweaty, and the trees are full of snakes. Det var dock en sak som fick oss att hålla modet uppe, but it was however something that got our bravery up. Som den belgare han spenderade Marcelo varje helg med att brygga öl på kokplata I den gemensamma köket. So as the Belgian, Marcelo spent every weekend brewing beer in the communal kitchen on the stove. Det var där han bryggade en öl vi aldrig kommer att glömma. En syrig sprängfylld med mangopuré och toner av havssalt. So it was there that he brewed a beer that we would never, it would turn out we would never forget. With mango puree and tones of sea salt. Om du inte redan gissat, det är precis den ölen du håller I din hand. So if you have not already guessed, this is precisely the beer that you're holding in your hand. So there we go. Translation skills are getting better. Great. But yeah, nicely presented this one, as we say. 440 milliliter can. So yeah, curious to see how this turns out. I'm just hoping this one doesn't explode because the can feels pretty damn solid. So let's just be careful with this. I've had cans before. No, that's okay. I've had one or two cans where they've been literally filled to the brim, and then you open up and it goes, you get a bit of it shooting out. But this one seems to be okay. So let's see how this one turns out. This should hopefully be a nice beer, and it's always cool to see more Skånsk breweries popping up. We've got a really good choice of beer here in Skåne now. Of course, you've got the likes of Nerd Brewing and Elm 11 down in Malmö. You've got Brewski and Benchwarmers up in Helsingborg. Who else have we got? We've got Remelöv Gårds Brewery are doing some really good stuff. I'm trying to remember now. Brekeriet and Finn in Landskrona as well. They've got some really interesting stuff. And yeah, guess what? We'll leave the rest there just now and put that in when we start drinking it. But yeah, there's some really good beer here in Skåne now, which is great to see. You've also got Klackerbackens up in Kristianstad. They're doing some really quite nice stuff as well these days. But yeah, cool to see. Hopefully these guys kick off and do as well as some of those other ones that I've just mentioned. But yeah, as you can see with this one, and as you would expect from a mango Gose, it's poured a lovely hazy, very bright, rich kind of yellow colour. Yeah, not too much in the way of head on this one. When we poured it, there wasn't even a quarter finger of head there, but it does leave a little foamy ring around the edge of the glass, and it's quite a bumpy foamy ring that you get out of this one, but I would describe it as being pure white. But yeah, lovely kind of white hazy thing. I should point out that this one has Vetemalt in it, so it's got wheat malt, which is great. But yeah, that'll be contributing to the haze in this one. Remember, when it comes to the colour of your beer, there's a few things that determine that. One, the type of malts that you use. Two, the length of your wort boil. And then, of course, you have adjuncts and barrel aging can also affect it as well. So probably it's a mix of 1, 2 and 4. In this case, a little bit of the malt, a little bit of the wort boil, and then of course you've got the fruity adjunct of the mangoes in there too that are playing a role here. But yeah, it certainly looks very nice. There's a good degree of haze to this one. The level of haze that you'll get in these beers is usually dependent on the adjuncts and you know, wheat and oat content and things like that mainly. But yeah, it certainly looks as you would expect for a mango Gose. There's nothing particularly surprising about that. So yeah, I think we can check out the aroma and see how we get on. Nothing particularly surprising about this beer in terms of its appearance. Nice level of haze, lovely colour. So let's have a look at the aroma. And the thing I will say before we do that, what I often find with these kind of beers, probably the best known breweries in Sweden for these kind of beers were the likes of Morgendagens, Duck Pond, what's the other one in Gothenburg now? Fermentararna are also doing some really interesting beers like this as well. And in Malmö, Elm 11 have some awesome Goses and Berliner Weisses and things like that. But what you often find with these beers is that they're very straight shooting in terms of their flavours and their aromas and stuff, but they are just very, very nice to drink. Sometimes simplicity is the key, and these kind of beers show that. So let's have a little look at the aroma of this one then and see how we get on. That actually does smell very nice, very good. Yeah, it's kind of as you would expect. Yeah, it smells quite wheaty actually. I get quite a bit of wheat out of this one, I have to say, compared to some other Goses and things that I've had before. But what you have to remember is that the Goses that I would have had from the likes of Duck Pond and from the likes of Duck Pond and all of these kind of things, they've got a lot of oats and and lactose and things like that in to thicken them up. This one smells as if it's a little bit more kind of crisp and drinkable, if you like. So you get the straight up wheat out of this one, which is nice. So that's the backbone of the beer. It's wheat, and it almost smells a little bit German and Hefeweizen like in that sense. It's got a little bit of a kind of, I wouldn't be surprised if this is German wheat malt in there, just going from the aroma, because it does have a little bit of that sort of Hefeweizen-y vibe to it. So yeah, that big sort of slightly banana-y, sort of banana bread kind of thing forming the backbone of the beer here. There's a little bit of a bread crusty note to it as well, I would say, and maybe even a little hint of a kind of clovey spice and bubblegummy thing. So the backbone of this beer is, you know, quite Hefeweizen-like, or maybe it's more accurate to say it's a little bit more like an American wheat ale in a sense, to be honest with you. I think if I was, you know, if I was smelling this beer, I think I would probably think this was like an American wheat beer or a Hefeweizen or something. If I was smelling this blind, I think that's probably what I would say it was. But yeah, the backbone of this beer is really quite nice in that sense. Yeah, white bready notes in there, good bit of banana, a little bit of clove, and you're getting a bit of that kind of bubblegummy sort of candy thing that you would expect of, say, a German Hefeweizen, sometimes an American wheat ale. But it's very straight shooting and it works. I certainly like that about this beer for sure. So yeah, gets a thumbs up from me in that regard. The malty side of this beer, I think, goes together really well. Now it doesn't list hops on the, oh no it does, yeah, it does list hops as an ingredient on this one. And I was going to say, it's a bit strange that there wasn't hops listed on the ingredients list, but there is, because it does actually smell as if, you know, you can smell a nice little bit of floral and grassy character out of this one. So what tends to happen with beers like this, the original Goses and Berliner Weisses in Germany, there's not too many producers of those anymore down there. A lot of the Goses and things that you're getting in Germany are produced by the sort of new American style breweries rather than the traditional German Brauhouses and things like this. But what they tend to do with these kind of beers is put like slightly older hops in them. So the German Hallertau and Tittnanger hops, those are usually 5% alpha acid or so they're not the most pungent of things, but they tend to use those kind of hops, lower alpha acid ones, and then they also tend to let them age a little bit, and that means that, you know, the beta acids are the things that determine how long the bitterness will last. So in a lot of these kind of beers, they tend to use slightly older hops so that the hoppiness doesn't take away from the sourness of the beer. But with this one, you do get a little bit, there's a wee teeny little bit of earthiness in there. There's some nice floral aromaticity, and the brightness of the floral aromaticity makes me wonder, is it a little bit of Czech Sats or something that's in here? Although it doesn't quite come across as spicy enough for Sats, it could be, you know, it could be a little bit of, it could just be a little bit of Hallertauer Tettnanger. I don't think it's an American hop that's in here because it's not quite pungent enough to be like an American hop or a New Zealand hop or something like that. But you've also got some nice little grassy notes in there as well. Definitely, there's a wee bit of a grassy zestiness to the beer, which is good. But then beyond that, beyond the green components, which I like it when they use hops in these sour beers because it just adds a little bit more depth to the beer. Beyond that, it's all about the mangoes and things. But you know, as you always do with these sour beers, you get little hints of apricot and you know things like this. There is a wee hint of a kind of apricot-y note to this beer, and like we said, from the sort of yeasty and malty side of things, there is a wee bit of banana coming out of this one as well. So yeah, I like how this goes together. So yeah, the aroma, this one, it is kind of what you'd expect, but it really works well. So yeah, just surprised. The thing that surprises me about it though is the level of kind of Hefeweizen and an American wheat ale character it's got, but it gets a thumbs up from me. I think this one could turn out to be quite an interesting beer. Let's fire the rest of it in and see how we go. Let's have a taste of this one now. So yeah, this one is the Mangos Deluxe. Checking the alignment for my OCD. This is the Mangos Deluxe, 5.6% sour mango Gose from Ofrälse Brygghus, a gypsy brewery based here in Skåne in the south of Sweden. Let's get stuck into this one. Slange, skål, cheers. Yeah, that's a very light, nice, drinkable Gose, definitely. So yeah, this one, I would say, it's interesting. I mean, I like this beer. What I would say that's interesting about this is that when you compare it to the other, you know, as I say, the Elma Livens, the Fermenter Arnas, the Morgendagens, the Duck Ponds, these kind of breweries, you know, when you compare it to these guys, this one, it really has a little bit more of a kind of traditional vibe about it. It really has a little bit more of that traditional German kind of thing going on. It's interesting as well that the recipe is developed by a Belgian guy originally. So yeah, this one really does have a little bit more of a German vibe to it, which I think works really well. So this is a completely different take. This is kind of, it's got a more, I don't think in Germany they would traditionally put mango in Gose, so this is more of a kind of crafty American side of things, whereas the Gose itself, the base beer, is distinctly more German. So this is an interesting kind of change of pace, if you like, compared to other stuff we've had on the channel quite recently. So yeah, you know, thumbs up to them for thinking out of the box a little bit. But yeah, I think they've done a solid job with that. I'd love to see them try this, to use this base that they've got with different fruits and things as well. That could be interesting for them to try some berries and stuff like that with it. But I think they've got a solid, that's a solid enough beer, that for sure. So be interesting. If this is like their second beer they're releasing, it's going to be interesting to see how these guys develop over the next little while. But yeah, it's a very light, drinkable beer, this one, and it is more like a traditional German Gose than the other ones you're going to find on the market. So yeah, okay, right, let's break down the flavour of this one then. It is quite similar to what you'd expect based on the aroma, to be honest. But yeah, straight away across the middle of your palate then you can feel that nice white bready base, and I think that works really well. So nice smooth white bready base there. What you'll feel is on top of that kind of white bready base, you start to get little elements of banana. You start to get that kind of yeasty banana type quality forming in the middle of your palate, and it's almost like you've got a circle in the middle third of your tongue, and the banana just kind of sits on top of that. You can get a little touch of that sort of clovey spice, particularly on the front half of that kind of middle third of your palate, and you've also got you know, you do get a wee bit in the aftertaste. You do start to get, on top of that kind of clovey spice in the banana, you start to get a wee bit of that bubblegummy thing that you can often get from Hefeweizen. So it's distinctly, for me, the wheaty character in this beer which is one of the inherent traits of a Gose, of course, is distinctly German. It's definitely got that distinct light German and sort of Hefeweizen-y type vibe about it, which I do like. So remember, the Goses in Germany, I forget what town it is that they're from again, but what they actually used to do was put the beer in bottle and put the salt, and then you'd get the froth coming out on top of all these bottles, and then it was open fermentation. That was how they got the sourness out of the beers originally. They put them in the bottles and just let the froth kind of come over and spread all over the place, which was interesting. But yeah, distinctly nice light German base to this beer, which I think works very, very well. Absolutely. And I think other than what we've said there, I think there's not too much to say about the middle third of your palate for sure. So if you go to that border region between middle third and back third of your palate, there's a little bit of a kind of slightly more doughy and bread crusty element to the beer. Then on the back third of the palate, it's got a little bit more, you do get more of that kind of wheaty side coming out of the beer again, and it does get a little bit sweeter almost on the back third of your palate too. But on top of that kind of wheaty base that you have, you can feel the sort of more airy, yeasty flavours out of it, so the flavour feels a little bit taller on that back third of your palate and quite airy, like I said. So if you go from the back of your palate, the flavour's like this. As you move further forward, it just condenses down a little bit. As you reach that border region into the middle third of your palate, it goes like this, and then you get more of a condensed, wheaty, bready sort of flavour coming out of it. So I really like how that goes together. I think that works very, very well actually. It works nicely. So yeah, in terms of, I think that covers the malty component of the beer. In terms of the hoppy side of things then, again, it's quite like I described in the aroma. So there's a little bit of kind of earthiness in the back corners of the palate. As you move further forward, it develops a little bit of a herbal character, and as you move towards the kind of front corners of the palate, there's more kind of floral aromaticity to the beer too, which is great. So I quite like that with this beer, definitely. So yeah, there's a nice, as I say, a nice little bit of floral aromaticity to the beer. It does taste a little bit like noble hops, to be honest with you. I think it is some kind of noble type hop that's in this, but then round the front curve of the palate you get a little bit of a lighter sort of grassiness there, and then beyond that it's all about the mangoes. The saltiness in this beer, you start to get a little bit more on the aftertaste, and it sits kind of towards the back of the mid. It sits on top of everything, but kind of towards the back of the middle third of your tongue, I would say. So it kind of goes together quite well actually. I like how all of that sort of pieces together, but yeah, it certainly works very, very well in that sense. So yeah, I really like how the saltiness starts to come out of it at the end as an aftertaste, because initially when you drink it you don't get too much of the saltiness, I would say. But yeah, we've covered the hoppy side of the beer, the malty side of things, and the salt is coming out there as well. Now I think we need to cover the fruit. So on that border region between middle third and front third of your palate, again you get a little bit of a doughy kind of doughy yeasty thing building up there. There's a little bit of a bread crusty quality to it. Then the base of that front third of your tongue is again, it's a nice kind of smooth white bready sort of thing, which I really like. Yeah, it's again, that's kind of what you'd expect. You do get a little bit of the banana element in there too, but then yeah, the fruity side of the beer comes in right on top of that. Of course, on top of that bread note, you will get one or two little apricot-y kind of elements too, but then on the top, it's all about the big, juicy mangoes, and there's a little bit of that kind of sour element going on in there as well. But the mango kind of spreads around the edge of the palate. Remember, whenever you get the mango, whenever you add fruit into beer as an adjunct, what it does, it suppresses a little bit of the green part of the hop around the kind of front curve of your tongue. So yeah, I think that's quite obvious in this one. You do get quite a lot of that out of this beer for sure. So yeah, the mango sits there right on the front of the tongue. I think the mango, it gets most of its pungency, and you get most of the citrusy side of the mango on the front half of that front third of your palate, but then you can feel the wetness of the mango, the juiciness just kind of spreading around the front corners of your palate. So that works really nicely with this beer as well. But yeah, to be honest with you, I think that summarises the flavour really quite nicely. This beer is not madly sour, but it does have a wee bit of zippiness to it, which is good. But yeah, definitely more of a traditional German Gose than anything else, I would say. It's definitely more German than sort of American in style, if that makes sense. Although adding mango into these kind of beers is a bit more of an American concept, if you like. I don't think the Germans did that traditionally, but correct me on that in the comment section below if I'm wrong. But yeah, I think we can round off with the mouthfeel then. So carbonation is fairly smooth in this one. The mouthfeel overall is quite, it's got quite a wet mouthfeel, and it's a little bit slick as well, I would say. Yeah, it does have an element of that kind of German drinkability to it as well, which I do quite like. But yeah, in terms of bitterness and things like that, this one's only going to have, 10 IBUs or something at most. Very, very low IBUs in these Gose beers. The malt base is very, very smooth. It gets a little bit sweeter the further that you go into it. You get a little bit of saltiness out of the beer, as you would expect from a Gose as well. And the fruitiness in this one is nice and juicy, but it starts off with just a little bit of sourness and things like that too, and there's a wee bit of zestiness. So yeah, I think this is a really interesting beer. Definitely a change of pace compared to the other Goses and sours that I've had in recent times, but I think over time, I think Ofrälse are going to be an interesting addition to the Skånsk beer scene, and I'd love to see them take this base beer and play around with different fruits, because I know there's a lot of fruit. I think there are quite a few fruit farms here in Skåne, so doing it with like some local strawberries and berries and stuff like that, that could be very, very interesting. So yeah, I think this has been an interesting introduction to Ofrälse Brygghus, and I hope that we can review a few more beers from them soon. So yeah, let's leave it at that for this one. This was the Mangoes Deluxe 5.6% Gose from Ofrälse Brygghus, based in Skåne here in the south of Sweden. Looking forward to more from these guys. It's been a great introduction to them, and I hope you guys have enjoyed this one. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comment section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from this brewery, and I'm sure we'll have them again on the channel very, very soon. Until the next time, Slanja, Skål, cheers, and see you guys later.